All right, let's dive into some of history's absolute weirdest laws. Today, we're heading to ancient China to meet an emperor whose own, let's call them quirks, actually became the law of the land for millions of people.
I'm serious. Just think about that for a second. You get pulled over, the lights are flashing, and the officer just looks at you and says, "Oh, my mistake. You're not tall enough to be arrested. Go on, have a nice day." Sounds totally nuts, right? Well, something just like this was actually the law for millions.
So, where did an idea this bizarre even come from? To get to the bottom of it, we've got to go way back, like around 200 BC, to the Qin Dynasty in China. And the man behind all these rules was the very first emperor of a unified China, a guy named Qin Shi Huang.
Now, Emperor Qin Shi Huang is famous for some huge things, like uniting China and getting the Great Wall project started. But it was one tiny personal detail that ended up shaping his legal code more than anything else. You could say he was, and I mean this literally, a true short king.
Yep, 4 feet, 11 inches tall. I mean, think about that. The most powerful man in the entire empire, and that one little measurement wasn't just a fun fact about him, it became the yardstick for his entire legal system. So he puts out this formal legal code, right? It's called the 18 Laws of Qin. And one of the most basic ideas in it, forget your birthday. Your height is what decided if you were an adult or not. Which brings us to our first truly bizarre law, the height requirement. It was simple. To be considered a grown-up in the eyes of the law, you had to be at least as tall as the emperor himself. If you didn't measure up, well, legally, you were still just a kid.
I mean, just look at the difference here. Today, it's all about your age, your birth date. Back then, it was just a visual test. Are you tall enough? If not, you weren't held responsible in the same way. Okay, so you might be thinking this is just completely random, but there was some logic to it, even if it's kind of strange. See, back then, birth records were a mess. A lot of people just didn't have them. So trying to prove how old someone was, almost impossible. So the emperor went with something simple, something you could check right there on the spot, height. And hey, whose height makes a better standard than your own, right? And this, of course, created this incredible loophole. If you were a shorter guy and you got into some trouble, you could literally just argue, hey, I'm not tall enough to be an adult, and you might just get off. It was basically a get-out-of-jail-free card, just for being short. Okay, but let's say you did pass the height test. You're officially an adult man. Well, now you had to be really, really careful with your emotions, because our second crazy law made crying an actual crime. But only for men. Yeah, you heard that right. In this super rigid, military-focused society, a man shedding tears was seen as a sign of weakness. The emperor was building this tough, powerful empire, and a crying man just didn't fit that image. It went against everything they were trying to build. And the punishment? Oh, it was brutal, and all about public shame. If you were a guy and you got caught crying, they would shave off your beard and your eyebrows. In that culture, that was like walking around with a giant sign that said, "I broke the rules," a total mark of shame. All right, so men can't cry. Got it. Seems consistent in a weird way. But then, just when you think you've got a handle on the emperor's logic, the laws do a complete 180. While men were banned from crying, women were actually forced to. This leads to one of the strangest rituals you'll ever hear about. So, check this out. Before getting married, every woman had to perform this super specific crying ritual. For a full month, 30 days, the bride-to-be had to cry for an hour every single day. And it gets crazier. Her mother had to join in for 3 of those weeks, then her grandmother for 2. And for the final week, all her aunts and sisters had to join in too. It was a scheduled group crying session. So, why on earth would you make this a law? Well, officially, it was supposed to be a required show of affection, a way to show she was sad about leaving her family. It wasn't about feeling real emotion, it was about performing that emotion as a duty. Okay, let's step back for a second. We've got laws based on your height, laws telling men not to cry, and laws forcing women to cry. On the surface, they seem totally random, right? But if you look closer, they all point to one single powerful idea: control. Total and absolute control. This was the emperor's blueprint. He took his own physical trait and made it the legal standard. He literally regulated emotions, telling people when they could and couldn't cry.
He even turned a family ritual into a state mandate. These weren't just quirky rules. They were all tools designed to control every single part of a person's life.
At the end of the day, the message from these laws was crystal clear. From the size of your body to the tears on your face, nothing was off limits to the emperor. The state's power was meant to be felt everywhere, from the most public squares to the most private moments.
And that really makes you think, doesn't it? These laws seem completely bonkers to us now, but they made perfect sense to the people who made them. So it begs the question, what rules do we have right now that people 2,000 years in the future are going to look back on and just shake their heads?